Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive, kind of mind-bending paradox right at the heart of our financial markets, and we're going to use the SASB standards to unpack exactly how we track corporate accountability within security and commodity exchanges. It all starts with one really provocative question. Who exactly is watching the financial watchdogs? I mean, imagine you're watching a sports game, right? But the referee gets a fat cash bonus depending on who wins. Wild, right? Well, that is essentially the exact tension we face when the very entities writing the market rules are also the ones raking in profits from the game.
Section 1. The conflict of interest.
So, to really wrap our heads around this tension, we have to realize that security and commodity exchanges, well, they don't just facilitate your trades. They actually act as self-regulatory organizations, or SROs. Think of them as the literal referees of the market. They're tasked with overseeing member entities, monitoring compliance, and, theoretically, ensuring fair play and open access for absolutely everyone.
But you see, here is the dilemma. On one hand, you've got massive for-profit growth. Exchanges absolutely thrive on maximizing trading volume and racking up those lucrative listing fees. But then, on the flip side, you have the regulatory duty, protecting investors and ensuring fair access. It's this inherent, completely unavoidable clash between generating maximum revenue and strictly enforcing the rules. It's a tough balancing act, for sure.
And honestly, when the referee prioritizes profit over fair play, the fallout is pretty severe. If exchanges fail to manage this conflict of interest, it essentially opens the floodgates to things like market manipulation, tax fraud, insider trading, and anti-competitive behavior. We're not talking about minor infractions here. These are systemic failures that can absolutely decimate investor trust. Well, the good news is that the SASB standards framework tackles this issue head-on. Under their specific topic of managing conflicts of interest, the framework provides this incredibly structured approach, which actually gives us investors the hard metrics we need to hold these exchanges accountable.
Section 2. Tracking financial penalties.
So how exactly do we track the financial hit when these regulatory failures actually happen? Well, that brings us to our first quantitative metric, FNEX 510A.1, and it kind of acts as the ultimate investor lie detector test. Basically, it tracks the total amount of monetary losses reported in the presentation currency that are incurred from legal proceedings tied directly to fraud, insider trading, antitrust, and market manipulation. It literally puts a hard number on the true cost of these ethical breaches.
Section 3. Defining monetary losses.
Now, to accurately measure accountability without letting the numbers get fudged, this metric has to have some very strict boundaries. When we look at what's actually included, we're talking about regulatory fines, civil judgments, disgorgement, and restitution. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it strictly excludes the company's legal defense fees. Why? Well, because dropping millions on high-priced corporate lawyers isn't exactly a penalty for doing wrong, right? It's just a cost of mounting a defense. So stripping those legal fees out gives us a true, totally undiluted picture of the actual regulatory failure.
And here's the thing, exchanges can't just, drop a massive liability onto their balance sheet and walk away. No way. They actually have to provide the story behind the numbers. Was it a settlement? A guilty plea? Was the context antitrust issues or market manipulation? And most importantly, they have to detail the exact corrective actions they've implemented. Maybe that's bringing in new management or upgrading their technology, basically proving what they are doing to ensure it never happens again.
Section 4. Systems for accountability.
Okay, pivoting over to the preventative side of things, we look at the qualitative discussion metric, FNX 510A.2. Here, exchanges are required to openly discuss their exact processes for identifying and assessing these conflicts of interest. They essentially have to pull back the curtain and show us their internal wiring. We want them to prove that they have strong corporate policies, dedicated compliance personnel, and strict board oversight in place to keep those powerful for-profit motives in check.
The standard actually outlines 3 distinct ways they can minimize these conflicts. First, by heavily educating their broker-dealer members on compliance. Second, by deploying technical compliance mechanisms, things that automatically enforce the rules right within the trading software itself. And third, which is honestly the ultimate transparency flex, delegating some of their self-regulatory powers entirely to a qualified, independent third-party organization.
So you might be asking, why does all this rigorous tracking actually matter to us? Well, because an exchange's reputation is, quite literally, its most valuable asset. Managing governance capital and actively discouraging unethical activities is basically the only proven way to protect long-term shareholder value. A single major scandal can decimate trading volumes overnight. So good governance isn't just a nice-to-have, it is the absolute bedrock of an exchange's survival.
As our markets become faster, vastly more complex, and heavily automated, the stakes for fair play have really never been higher. The SASB standards give us the crucial data to measure the integrity of our markets, but the ultimate question still remains. Are we, as investors, demanding enough transparency from our financial watchdogs? Because at the end of the day, it's really up to the market to make sure the referees are staying honest.